let's try to start today. So today we're going to be discussing three things. We're going to be discussing BitLocker encryption. Oh my God, I wish I had my system today. I wish this system, I can ping it, but I cannot, for some reason, I cannot access it. Like how deep, even how deep it to hit, it just won't accept 10.3.1.11. Just refuse to take my connections. And I would have really loved to show something. Okay, yeah, let's cancel that. Before I even do that, let me quickly, because I wanted to demonstrate something, but I still think I can demonstrate it. Um, but yeah, let's go Linux Lite. Let's download the Linux Lite. So while we're talking, it's downloading. Yeah, there we go. 64-bit Lite. Come on, come on, come on. Hopefully you'll be fast. So today we're going to be talking about three things. Well, maybe two things, because I'm not sure if we're able to cover everything, but maybe two things. But first thing we're going to be talking about, yeah. Oh, nice one. That's nice, nice speed. So first thing we're going to be talking about BitLocker encryption. We're going to be talking about something called EFS encryption, and then we're going to be talking about something called um, what Microsoft called, I'll put it in quotes, advanced. I don't know what's advanced about it, but Microsoft calls it an advanced auditing. So those are the three things that we'll attempt to talk about today. EFS encryption, BitLocker encryption, advanced auditing. Um, so yeah, here's the thing about this. So far in 7411, when we've been talking about file services, we've been talking about things like DFS. So what does DFS do again?
You asking me or
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah, yeah,
DFS is basically a distributed file system.
yeah.
It's one of the ways where, let's say, I will give you an example how to explain it.
Mm-hmm,
Like basically, if you're traveling between two sites, right?
mm-hmm,
Then through the distributed file system, you can map your folder. Basically, you can do folder mapping on a different like network drives,
mm-hmm.
and you can have them in a simple, easy way. Like accessing one folder, you don't care where the folders are,
Yeah.
and they are based on site, and it is the DFS system is intelligent enough to give you the closest site,
Mm-hmm,
but there is some redundancy option in DFS as well. Like if one site goes down, then it tries to find you the closest another site and
mm-hmm.
try to get the file for you. Still, you don't care that where the file is. It's just the DFS problem. And once the site gets back, so it just switch you back to that site to access those files.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice one. So what about you, Joe? What do you think? So DFS, what's your understanding of DFS? So because in this series so far we've talked about DFS and we've talked about FSRM. So Joe, what's your understanding of DFS? Or what's the purpose of DFS?
Oh, he's gone.
Okay. He's just ever okay, maybe I'll guess maybe his internet connection or something. Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Not
so
many people are turning up in the Hangouts. I've been just seeing that not many people turned out on the.
yeah, the thing with people is that it's difficult to be consistent. Especially for many people, it's really difficult to be consistent because you get tired, you get bored, you get carried away with lots of things. It's really difficult to be consistent. So I
Yeah,
understand that from their perspective, why many people are like, I can't carry on doing this all the time and all that stuff. But it doesn't matter. I mean, we're still recording it, so it's still good for people eventually if people want to see the
yeah.
recording and all that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So DFS. So we've talked about DFS, and then we talked about FSRM. So DFS, we said DFS is mainly for resiliency.
Yeah.
So when you have a file server in one location, you have a file server in another location. Actually, if you want, I may be able to take you along because I'll be configuring this for a company in London very soon. So maybe I'll let you
When
know
are
when I want to do that.
you doing those projects? Like, are you setting up proper networks for other companies as well, like
Yeah, it's more like
from scratch?
their infrastructure is really old, and
Okay,
basically it's basically like trying to do it from scratch, but not from scratch because we're going to be doing a lot of migration. So they have an
okay,
existing infrastructure, but it's really old. There's
okay.
no resiliency. It's really slow. It's poor. They still run Windows 2000.
8 or 2003.
Not even 2003, 2000. Windows 2000.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just really old infrastructure. So they're like, okay, we've had enough. It's time to fix this thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So you say DFS is for resiliency. FSRM, we say we can use that to configure advanced features for our file servers. So we can configure things like storage quota, where we say you can't use beyond this disk space, you know, or we can configure things like storage screening, where we can say to a user, these are the files that you can store in this location. If we have a payroll folder, there's no reason why there should be a video in the payroll folder. So we can say, we can configure and say you're not allowed to store videos in this location. You're not allowed to
Yeah.
store audios in this location. So storage screening. We can do things like file classification,
Yes.
which we can use for dynamic access control list. And then we can do things like storage reports, which management likes very much because we can give management a report of what is going on our storage system. Who is storing more files? How many files are people storing, over time? Well, what's the amount of storage that we have that has not been accessed in a long time?
I think in professional environment, it should be one of the most crucial things to look at, right? The FSRM, because that might be you might be dealing on daily basis on keeping an eye on storage and backups.
Yeah. So actually,
Because DNS you set up, DHCP you set up, you forget about it.
yeah,
But then you have to be very careful with your storage and backups and redundancies and you
yeah.
know.
Actually, what most people would do in the real world is they will not really be using FSRM for no,
Okay.
they can use FSRM for these ones, but for storage, for things like proactively monitoring your storage to ensure that you don't run out of storage, people will have something like a monitoring system,
Which would be what?
maybe something. There are free ones, maybe something
Like
like,
third party.
yeah, exactly, maybe something like Spiceworks, maybe something like Nagios, you know, maybe something like Zabbix. So all these ones are free.
So when you are going to find job, are you supposed to be knowing these systems or is it
You may not necessarily know all of them, but you are expected to know at least one of them. Not necessarily one of these ones, just any monitoring system. So Microsoft also have their own called SCOM, or full meaning is System Center Operations Manager.
okay?
Or there's another popular one that's really, really popular with companies nowadays is something called SolarWinds.
SolarWinds, yeah.
Yeah. So they use these systems for monitoring the infrastructure. So in other words, I have my server, and then I configure my server, put the storage and everything, and then I go to SolarWinds and say to SolarWinds, this server with this IP address, I want you to monitor this server for me.
Okay,
And I can configure on SolarWinds and tell SolarWinds if the storage of this server, if it ever goes below um, seven and below, if it ever goes above 80%, let me know immediately.
okay.
So SolarWinds is going to be monitoring the environment for me, and the way it's going to be doing that is going to be doing something called polling. So we can do polling frequency. So we
But
can
can you
say
not do this? Can you not do the same thing with making an MMC snapshot or something?
you probably can, but that is probably a lot complicated
Okay,
because it's just not worth it for many companies. For example, Spiceworks is a good one. It's absolutely free, but
okay.
it does all these things way, much more intelligently and all that. And even some like SolarWinds are even much more intelligent to the extent that if you have DHCP server installed on a machine, SolarWinds can automatically detect it and automatically set up monitoring for your DHCP server. so that it can alert you if you're running out of addresses.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
so they can do all this kind of intelligent stuff that is not in Microsoft by default. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, even Microsoft have their own special
Yeah,
ones
I've
they use
seen
for
this
it.
ASCOM in a lot of job requirements.
Yeah. So actually, when they put SCOM in like the job requirement, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know SCOM that much. What they actually want is that just understand a monitoring system, whether Spiceworks or yeah, normally I have Spiceworks or even on my laptop that I'm talking with you from, I have Spiceworks installed on it. So I just play around with it. It's free. It's completely free, 100% free, and it's a really really solid one.
Okay, I will have a look. I will
Yeah.
note it down.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So you don't really have to know it in details, just know, the concept. Because there's one thing, if you can operate one of them, really you can operate many of them because they all use the same concept.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So then you have, but yes, but the good thing about this storage report is you can find out something even much more detailed, like maybe you have a storage system. If you have a storage system for users, users will keep using it. If you tell your users, you know what, we just bought a new NAS server. The NAS server has 10 terabyte of storage. I guarantee you, your users will find something to fill that 10 terabyte of storage. If you if
Oh,
you if you make it available to them, they will find something to fill it.
oh, okay.
And then after you finish that, then you go to get another 100 terabyte and say, we have another 100 terabytes. Before you know it, they'll find something to fill it.
I have a real life question for you.
Yeah, sure. Please
How
go on.
many network users you have in your office?
Lots. I would say maybe globally,
In London site.
Not. I don't think we don't have any site in London, but in the one in Oxford, about 500, 600 users.
So how? I think it will be going to go out of context. We need to cover this, but I will ask you this some other time.
Yep.
I really want to figure out how you configure like the storage for them, what's your strategy of defining groups and stuff, like all those users. Really like to have a discussion with you on this. Like
Yeah.
how do you configure the storage for those users
Yeah.
and how do you define quotas? How do you know, let's say you know that they are all doing office work using Microsoft Office. I know that 500 users will be using Microsoft Office.
Yep.
Some might be using graphic software. How do I figure out that how much space do I need for them?
Yeah. So that one that we'll talk about, I actually like okay, if I'm going to be doing that work on a weekend, the work I told you about, I'll
Yeah.
let you know so you can come along because that's part of the things that I'll be doing because I already wrote it like a documentation of how to configure their storage and everything, and I'll just basically be going to implement what I wrote in the documentation and all that stuff. But I'll let you know if I'll
Yeah.
be doing it on a weekend.
Yeah, let's stick to
Yeah.
the topic.
Yeah. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. So that's one of the things that storage report is good for because users will fill up any storage space you give to them. But here's what happens. Maybe a user is like, yeah, I'll just copy all these files here. And then for the next 7 months, they don't even use the file at all. So you
Okay.
are the storage admin. Otherwise, you'll be constantly running out of disk space. So part of the things that you'll be doing is you'll be finding out what are the stale files, files that people have not used for a long time, and you copy all those files off from that storage system into like another storage system, which you use for archiving.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that storage report can provide you with. Storage report can provide you with a way to say, can you show me which files that nobody has accessed for the past 7 months? So
Okay.
so you can use this one for such things. So we've discussed all that so far, but all these ones are about provisioning our storage system, making it more effective if you have a global company and all that stuff. But one other thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that our storage system is secure, right? That's one
Yes.
thing. Um, and what's the reason? Why do we have to make sure that they are secure? The only reason that you can think of that we have to make sure that they are secure.
Yes, I think there are a couple of reasons. One of the main and greatest advantage would be a good example if you are using a read-only domain controller
Mm-hmm.
and you that's on a remote location
Yep.
where you don't go and attend it.
Mm-hmm.
So if some thieves comes in and then he runs away with your server.
Yeah,
having all the information in it, like users and important information. So he cannot do anything with that hard drive
yeah,
because it will be encrypted. So that's one of the biggest advantage to use it on a read-only domain controller. And then apart from that, obviously there are obvious security information that you keep HR records, salaries, personal data, and stuff like that.
yeah,
So it's always a good idea to encrypt it. Uh,
yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right because that's like one of the reasons why I want to do that. But the other reason is that even like think about this situation now. Okay, I've got a folder on the screen. This folder that I've got on the screen, if I go properties and go under security, I can configure who has access to this folder, right?
yeah,
I can say, okay, I don't want system. I don't want just the system to be able to access my file. So I remove system. So I go administrator. So that means anybody in the administrator group can access my folder, right? My secret
yeah,
folder. Say, okay,
yes.
remove it. So now only my admin account, which is the administrator account, has access to this folder, full control. And I say replace all the permission and go okay. It says do I want to continue? Yeah. So I'm the only one that has permission. So I go here and I go
When you say administrator, is it like the administrator for your own machine or the administrator of the domain?
the domain because I'm logged in with the domain admin account.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me go new. And let's go new text document and let's call this new text document secret. So this is a secret text.
Yeah.
And let me put in here top secret. So so we have this secret that we are keeping, maybe this new, maybe this information that the CEO is sharing with the CFO that they don't want anybody to know, don't want the government to see, they don't want anybody to see, it's a secret one. Now,
Yeah.
now we've configured NTFS permissions, right? To say
Yes.
only the administrator can access this file, nobody else. So if I were to log off of this, if I were to log off of this, let me log out of this. Let me say power. Actually, let me see who is already logged into this machine before. Users, student. Okay, there's somebody called student. So let's log in as student. So let me log off Windows 8. If I go sign out and let's log in as student. I go student and go. We're going somewhere, There's something that I want to prove. Okay. It doesn't understand somebody called student. Let me look for another account that got access. Let's go connect to this one. Let's look for another account. Okay. Um, let's look for another good account that we can use. Mm, let me try Max. Maybe there's a user called Max. Is there? No, there's no user called Max. Um, yeah, because we have lots of users on this domain. If I go to show me the users on this domain. So there's something that I want to prove, but the reason is I don't want to just talk about it. I want us to prove it. So
Yeah.
that's the reason why we are going really slowly. So let's bring up tools and come on, tools. Yeah. Let's see our users. Okay, here's one user in IT. We got AMR, or let's use April, for example. April. So let's use April. Let's go back to our client and let's log in as April. So we got April, and April is logging into this computer. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, so it's gonna go through like all this process. The reason why I want to see is that we've got all this security that Windows come with. So Windows has its own securities, right?
Yeah.
Windows has things like NTFS,
Yeah.
for security, where you can say only these particular people have access to this particular files or to this particular folders. And Windows has
Yes.
all this, native security. But one limitation with all this security is this: they depend on Windows
NTFS system.
to enforce them. So that's a big limitation for them. They depend on Windows to enforce those security. So things like NTFS. And you see
Yeah,
what
I mean they depend on the file system, right?
they no, they depend on the Windows operating system itself.
Okay.
So without the Windows operating systems, those security that we're setting up, they're basically like almost meaningless. So let's see. So I log into this guy. I go under
Is there some kind of a third-party solution for it as well? Like if it can be make meaningful for every other system as well.
yeah, look at this. Okay, we have administrator.other tool. Look at this. It says you don't have permission to access this folder, right?
Okay.
Let's say I even have let's say if I say continue and I log in as administrator just to get to the folder on the desktop. But this guy obviously won't have the administrator password. So this is NTFS working now. Go on the password. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Yeah. And then we go on to desktop and we have a secret folder here. So this guy's excited already. I have this secret folder, I can see it. And then you double click on it and then NTFS tells you, no, you don't have permission, right?
Okay.
So this
Yeah.
is enforced by NTFS, right? What we
Yes.
configure. So what we do is let's shut down this machine. So let's shut it down completely. And then what we'll do is let's go under file settings. The hard drive that we're using is Microsoft Learning 2014. Let's let's go to see where it's located. Oh, yeah, so it's located in C. So that's the location. So let me copy this and close this and cancel this. And then what we'll do is let's go bring up a new machine that we just created, a new Linux machine. And on that new Linux machine, let's add a hard drive. Let's go SCSI controller, add that drive. Actually, let's just use this one. Let's go hard drive, virtual disk. Let's browse and let's go to our location. And here we
Is this
go.
the Linux-based virtual machine, right?
Yeah,
The what does it call? The Linux Lite.
yeah. So they call it Linux Lite. So actually, let me go because I want to see what this one 2411 that we just add. I want to see what hard drive it's actually using. So it's using this hard drive here. Yeah, so that's what I want. So let's do Control C. Okay, let's go back to our Linux machine.
What you're trying to do?
Yeah, you see, you see exactly what we're trying to do here. And let's say use this hard drive, and then let me go apply. Yeah, no problem. And then go okay, and then start, and then let's connect to our Linux system. Linux, Linux Lite.
So that VHD is having that Linux Lite into it, or I'm a bit confused because I think you were having a Linux Lite separate VHD, right?
Yeah, I did. So I did, yeah. So I'll explain exactly what I did in a minute
Okay.
if it can boot properly. Oh, I so much miss my VMware. Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. It's doing something. Linux Lite 2.0. Mm, Control Alt, left arrow. Ah, okay. Here we go. Um, come on, boot Linux machine boot. Yeah,
Quick
here we go.
question, can you connect Linux to the LDAP as well, like the lightweight directory access protocol and lightweight directory access services?
Yeah, there's a way. There's a way to do it. It won't obviously function like with the old features, but there's a way to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Look at this though. So now we are on a Linux machine, right?
Yep.
So let's bring up this one. And here we see something here called 68 GB volume, right? And
Yep.
let's bring this one up. And here we go. These are the drive that we had then. And then let's go administrator add atom, right?
Yes. In the desktop.
Let's see, desktop. And whoo, here we go. Here is our secret folder.
Yep.
Look at that. We're able to open our secret folder.
Yes.
Not only that, we're able to read our top secret.
The yeah.
So can you see what I was trying to prove? In that
Yes.
NTFS depends on the Windows operating system to enforce.
Yes.
The moment you can take that hard drive out of the system, plug into another system that's not Windows,
Yeah. It's all gone.
all your security, poof, it's all gone. All your secrets and all your we're blocking it down to this one, it's all gone. Your
Yeah.
file is open for anyone to see. Linux didn't even ask you, are you sure you want a permission? Do you want do you want
Yeah.
permission to do that? It's like I'll just open it because I don't care about NTFS.
Yep.
Because NTFS depends on Windows. Now do you understand what I was doing now?
Yeah.
So now let's shut down this one and let's go back. So what we're talking about is we're talking about EFS. So let's shut this machine down. So we're making progress little by little. So here's the thing. So that shows us something that um, NTFS has a limitation, the Windows operating system. So
Yes.
what way can we use to protect this file? If this was to be lost, let's say somebody stole this
We
laptop.
have to encrypt the whole hard drive, I think.
Exactly, we have to look for another solution which doesn't depend on Windows, which is where our encryption comes in.
Yep.
So here is the first question that we're going to be discussing today. What is encryption? What is encryption? So Zoe, if someone were to ask you, what is encryption? What will you say?
Encryption is basically protect is a technique to protect your data in some way through the help of public keys and private key concept.
Protect our data. Remember what we mentioned about all IT people? We have a lot of complicated terms, which is good, especially when you're going for interview. It's good to have all those technical jargon, you know.
Yeah.
But how do we break it down? So encryption is having public key, private key. Now I'm confused.
Okay.
So what exactly is encryption?
Well,
Okay,
encryption is basically, in simple words, locking down your data to protect it
yeah.
in some way.
Or another way that we can put it, let's say, someone just joined. Let me just join. Yeah, hello Lloyd, how you doing? Lloyd just disappeared again. Okay, yeah. So we got encryption. What is encryption? Or let me say cryptography. So
Yeah.
you're right in what I know what you're trying to describe, because I'm a technical guy also, so I know what you're trying to describe. But here's encryption basically. Encryption is simply you take a plain text, yeah,
Yeah.
you apply an algorithm, or to make it
Yes.
simple, a calculation
Yeah.
to the plain text. And then it will turn out to give you something called a ciphertext.
Yeah.
In other words, you take the information that you have, apply a random calculation to it will mess up that information, and now you have something called a ciphertext.
Okay.
And now, if you want to read your plain text, what you have to do is go through a process called
To
what?
decipher it.
Exactly, to decipher it or to decrypt it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a basic example. Like, let's say if you and me decide that we have to share a word in between us, like ABC,
Yeah,
but you say, okay, Zoeb, I will tell you uh, DEF.
yeah,
You interpret it as ABC.
yeah,
So that's kind of a ciphering and deciphering.
exactly, which is absolutely correct. So that is basically, um, I think this one is not going down quietly. So let's just shut it down.
Okay.
Let's just power it off.
That was
So
something new for me to know, this Linux Lite thing about this VHD and like virtualizing this. I know like how to virtualize through Ubuntu or something.
yeah, so
This, I will try this one.
Linux Lite, it doesn't require us to install anything, so I can just boot from the ISO file.
Okay.
Yeah, so that way I just copied I just pointed it to use the hard drive of this virtual machine as the secondary hard drive so that we can read the information from it.
One very quick question. Can you run a Mac OS X Mavericks or Yosemite on this through a VHD or something?
Not that I'm aware of, even though I know that some people say that you probably can recently,
I will search it on
but
YouTube maybe
yeah,
later.
but not that I'm aware
Anyways.
of. Yeah, but even if we're aware of it, I think it's illegal for now. But yeah, I think
Yeah, with Apple everything is illegal. You have to pay for it. You know. Same
okay.
as Microsoft, man. Microsoft means make so much money out of students, like just for teaching them these server technology and all that stuff.
Yeah, they do a lot. It's a lot. I mean, we've talked about it before, how expensive it is. Okay,
I have no doubt why Bill Gates is so richest in the world.
so now we understand the basics of encryption. You take a plain text, and like you said, we you said we can have
Yeah,
some
we
sort of
decide that ABC will be
ABC,
DEF.
yeah, will be DF, and
So
then we
that's
can
it.
say, okay, whenever I want to decipher it, we know what to use to decipher it.
Yeah,
So what we use to decipher, or the algorithm or whatever we use to decipher it, is something called a key.
yeah,
So again, we take a plain text, we apply an algorithm to it, we get a ciphertext.
yeah.
Now, there are two types of encryption or two types of cryptography. Two types. What are those two types?
I think it's uh, public key, private key.
You're right, but there's a name that they call them. Public
Uh,
key, private key. Yeah, there's a name that they call them.
I don't remember. Asymmetric, yeah.
Yeah, asymmetric encryption. Now, the reason we're talking about this is we have to understand the foundation of what we're doing first. To configure EFS, you'll be surprised. It's only, let's see, 30 seconds. So there's really nothing much to configure. Well, it's
Yeah.
more than 30 seconds if you're starting from scratch because you have to have your public key infrastructure and all that. Okay, so we have two types of encryption, symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. So what is symmetric encryption?
Symmetric encryption. I don't remember. I only remember this public and private key thing.
So symmetric encryption, so let's go back again. Symmetric encryption is this. So the things that we're describing, we're going to be describing them in plain terms, yeah, to make it simple. So we don't want to complicate things because we can come and throw a lot of tech complicated things at you,
Yeah.
and then eventually one doesn't understand it. So symmetric encryption is simply this: the same
The
key
same key, yeah.
that you use to encrypt is the same key
To decrypt.
that you use to decrypt.
I
That's
mean,
what
it's just like a lock that you use the same key all the time to unlock it.
exactly. So, for example, if I have a plain text and I say, well, the key I'm going to be using is 5, let's just say, and then we apply our key 5 to it, and then we get a ciphertext.
Yeah.
Someone that now gets the ciphertext is like, I have this ciphertext. I want to understand what's this message that you're trying to pass on to me. The only thing they need to do is to apply our key, the same key, 5 to the ciphertext, and it will produce our plain text again.
Yep.
Whereas for asymmetric encryption, it's a bit different. For asymmetric encryption, there's something called a key pair concept.
Yep.
So whenever a key is generated, they are generated in pairs. One of them, like you mentioned rightly, is a
Is it like the bank locker system where you go in and then you put your one key and the manager comes and then he puts his key and then they work together?
it's similar to that, but although there's another way that can be used to explain it. It's similar to that. Um, yeah, that's like one way to put it. That's like one way to put it. But the basic concept is two key pairs are generated. And one of the reasons why it's important to understand this is because very soon we'll start talking about the PK high. You know what a PK high is?
Uh, I've I've heard the name. I can't remember the abbreviation.
Public key infrastructure.
Yeah.
And do you know what the public key infrastructure means?
No.
It's simple. We only have a certification authority.
Authority, like the CA or something like that.
Exactly. In other words, let's bring up another paint document here. In other words, we have um, a computer on our domain, and the job of this computer is to issue certificates.
Yeah.
But the whole point of, what people don't understand is that when we talk about certificates, it's embedded into the concept of asymmetric asymmetric encryption.
Yeah.
Because when what this computer does, it's generating a public key, public private key. That's what it's generating. For example, let me see if my computer here. Let me see. Okay, actually, let's not use this one. Let's use the virtual machine that we're playing with. So, is this machine a CA? Active Directory. Yeah, it's a CA. Okay, so that's good. So let's do a quick test. MMC. Mm, mm, MMC. Okay. So let's do a quick check of something. So if I go add or remove snapping, because what happens is we have a machine on our infrastructure that generates a public private key pair. It will give the user the private key. Where is the private key stored?
I think it will give the user public key, right?
No, we don't give the user public key. The user himself.
Yes, the user is the public, right? So it's going to give the user public key
No.
and keep the private key with
For
itself, right?
example, we have this user here called administrator where he doesn't have a certificate. But let me just do something quickly. This is a self-generated certificate. Um, yeah, nothing really much to see in this one. So let's cancel this one. Let me just generate another one. I'll delete it again. Alt task request new certificate. Let's see. Let's just go um, enroll. Yeah, finish. Yeah, now we have a certificate issued to us. If I go properties of the certificate, um, hmm, well, I'm looking for one that. Okay, yeah, here we go. Properties of the certificate. Let me go under details, and then let's scroll down. Look at this. It says public key here, right?
Yeah.
So, which is the one that is in the certificate that this guy gave to me. Now, this public key is not only stored here. This public key is stored in on the Active Directory domain controller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll try to break it down now that later. Yeah, and then you can see the thumbprint of this user here. But this certificate actually also contains this user's private key. This certificate that
Mm,
we're looking at, it also contains this user's private key. So what happens is I generate a key pair, right?
yeah,
One of them a public key, one of them a private key. So let's give them so that we can know them. So let's say this one is private, while
yeah.
this one is the
PV public.
public one. Okay.
Yeah,
So we have this user on the network. This is the user that we generated the key for. So
yeah,
what we do is when this guy is issuing a certificate, what it's going to do actually is going to go and say this is the certificate. Like we saw, it will have the sorry, it will have the public key will be in that certificate too, right?
yeah,
The certificate that we're giving to the user. So there'll be a public key in there, but it's not only the public key that will be in there. It will also have the user's private key inside this certificate, and it will take this old one and give it to this user. You get the
okay,
point?
yeah,
Now, in our domain also, we have a Active Directory domain controller. Active Directory, right? Our AD
yeah,
server. So it will now take inside this AD server. Let's say this user's name is Zoe. Yeah. So
yeah,
this Zoe here. So I've generated this public private key, put both of them in the use in your certificate and giving it to you.
yeah,
Now inside AD under Zoe's name, I will also go by the way Active Directory. This is Zoe's public key. I'll put that in Active Directory.
yeah,
So what will happen is, let's say um, there's another user here, and this user is Joe. Joe wants to send a message to Zoe, but Joe wants that message to be secret.
yeah,
Remember that Joe will also have his own public private key that this guy has issued to him inside his certificate, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I hope I'm not making it too complicated. I hope it's clearer, right?
Yes, it's clear enough, but this certificate, is it Joe's will having his own separate certificate or is it using the same certificate that
No,
Zoe is
absolutely
using?
not. So this one will generate an individual private public key for every user
Okay,
in the
the
domain.
certificate authority.
Yeah. So
Okay,
for every user, for every computer, they will have their own separate private public key pair generated by DCA.
yeah.
And they will be in the certificate that will be handed over to them. But in their AD record in Active Directory, it will put their public key there.
So how do you do this in your real life? Do you use it through the CA or you use a third-party solution for it?
Yeah, so that's different. So you can use your own internal CA, you can use a third-party solution if you want. So that one is for another module, but because we're going to be using it, so because we're talking about the basics of encryption now, that's what
Okay,
we're making mention of this. So we want to understand the basics of encryption first. So Joe is like, I want to send a message to Zoe, but I want it to be secret.
yeah,
So what Joe would do is that he would talk to Active Directory and say, Active Directory, hey there, I need Zoe's public key because I
okay,
want to send a message to Zoe. And Active Directory will go, yeah, it's a public record. It's available for anyone to see. So what I'll
okay,
do is, you say, here we go. Here is Zoe's public key and give it to Joe.
yeah.
So Joe will take the information that he wants to send to Zoe and encrypt it with your
With
public
the
key,
public key.
with
Yeah,
your own public key.
with my public key, yeah.
Yeah. And then take that information and send
Give
it to
it to
Zoe.
me. Yeah.
Now, when you receive it, your private key, where is it located?
It's inside that certificate.
Exactly, inside your certificate. So as
Yeah.
long as you have your certificate, you can use your public key that is inside the certificate, apply it to this information, and all of a sudden, you've deciphered the text. You can see the
I
plain text.
I will apply my private key to decipher it, right?
Exactly. And now you have the
Okay.
information in plain text.
Okay,
So is
cool.
that clear, right?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah. So that's basically like so because it's very important for us to understand asymmetric encryption because
So one quick question, when you the CA authorities or whenever is giving you certificate, it has something to do with the PKI, right? Always.
so when you're talking about PKI, PKI
Yeah.
is just a technical jargon for certificate authority.
Okay.
So, so it's like one of the things we talked about in 90 that we throw around a lot of terms that people don't understand that can confuse people if we don't take time to explain it. So we say, the PKI. Well, the PKI you're talking about is just simply a certificate authority. That's all. That's all that has to
Okay.
do with the PKI.
Okay.
Or that's the foundation for a PKI. Just a certificate, just a certificate authority. So now, I
Okay.
hope that's clear, right? We have
Yes.
encryption. Encryption converts plain text to ciphertext by applying an algorithm to it. We have
Yeah.
two types. We have symmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption uses the same key that it uses to encrypt. It uses that same key to decrypt. Whereas
Yeah.
asymmetric encryption as a certificate authority or an authority, it doesn't have to be a certificate authority. It has it generates the key in pairs, a public key and a private key. Public key is stored centrally in a location. If you are in an Active Directory infrastructure, it's stored in your Active Directory. Private key is a private information. Any information that is encrypted by the public key of a user, only the user's private key can decrypt it.
So what about the symmetric? Let's talk about this. Go back to that diagram.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's say we are talking about this. This is asymmetric method.
yeah.
Let's say if we're talking about symmetric method, so Joe wanted to send me a secret message, so he will encrypt it through his public key, right? Or is it
No,
you
there's
going to
no,
use?
there's absolutely no public key. There's nothing called public key in symmetric. In
Okay.
symmetric, we only have a key. That's all. There's nothing called public or private. We only have a
So
key.
your key and my key, Joe's key will be same.
There's no Joe's key. There's no Zoe's key.
Okay.
So Joe is like, I want to send a message to you with symmetric encryption. It's like, hey, here's the message I want to send. I will generate this key. This key
Okay.
is called 5.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll send this key to Zoe. How I
Okay.
how I send it is a different discussion. Say,
Okay.
Zoe, here's the key I'll be using. The key is 5. So I'll
Okay.
take
Cool.
that message and send this message, apply 5 to this message to encrypt it and send it to you. When it gets to you, you don't have any special key. You just use the keys that I've sent to you and say, this is the key that I use to encrypt this information. You apply it to the information and you can decrypt it. So there's nothing called public private in symmetric. We just have a key, a randomly generated key.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing with symmetric and asymmetric. Symmetric is faster, way faster. And of
Yes.
course, it's faster because it's just applying a single key to it.
Yes, I know.
Asymmetric, on the other hand, can be slow.
Yes.
Or, well, not say slow. That's not absolutely accurate because we have very powerful systems nowadays. Let me put it this way. Can be processor intensive
Intensive.
because it uses a lot of processing to be applying your calculation to this one, to applying this calculation to this one. So it can be processor intensive. So this one is way much faster because it uses less processor power for what it's doing. So I hope that is clear, right? Okay.
Yes,
Let's
and I
look.
think it's more slow, like more secure is asymmetric than symmetric.
Yeah, exactly. Asymmetric is definitely much more secure than symmetric.
Yeah.
So here's the point. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? We're talking about EFS first of all. So again, let's log into this server. So we have this server here, and let's log in as administrator guy. So let's go Adatum administrator, and we go password. Now we've proved that our NTFS security is good as long as the hard drive remains within a Windows environment.
Yeah.
But what happens if your CEO goes for a conference in Germany or goes for a conference in Spain and he has this secret, on his laptop, and then somebody stole his laptop and they removed the hard drive and they plug into a Linux machine? We already saw what will happen. The
Yeah.
secret is open for everybody. But what I can do is I can come here and right click on this file and tell the CEO right click on this file. Actually, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to go. Yeah, here's the thing that we must know about EFS. We're talking about EFS first of all. EFS, let me put that down here. Let me put it in start here. EFS depends a lot on your on your PKI. Let me put it that way. On your public key infrastructure.
Yeah.
EFS depends a lot on it because
Yeah.
that is what EFS uses to do what it's doing. So we'll
Yep.
explain how it does what it is doing, but let us see what it does. So I'll just quickly configure it and then we'll go from there. So let's bring up command prompt here first. See, oh, there's no need. Let's go MMC and let's go enter and then let's go because what we want to do is we want to actually we don't really need to do that. We'll come back to that. Let's just go to this one and let me right click on it. Let me go to properties. So you see what I mean by EFS to configure EFS, it's less than 30 seconds. You
Yeah.
basically have to go to advanced and go encrypt content to secure data and go OK. And that's done. We've configured the EFS. So it says, do you want to apply the changes to this folder or to everything that's inside this folder? Let's say, yeah, everything that's inside this folder we want to encrypt. And we go
Yep.
OK. It says, well, I'm applying the attribute to that. And it's like, yeah, thank you, that's done. Then I go here, OK, and then go apply, OK. And now this is encrypted now. You can see this is green now.
The green color. Yeah.
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 So the other thing we'll do is let's shut this down now. So let's do the same scenario that we did earlier and let's see what will happen. So again, we'll have a Linux machine, you know. So this machine has been stolen again. Somebody has taken out the hard drive. They're like, whoa, we've stolen the machine of the CEO of this big company. We're
Yeah.
going to be able to access like all these important files and see what secrets they are keeping and all that stuff. So they have this one and then they go bring up their Linux machine and start it. Go bring up their Linux machine and they're about to access our secret files. So let's go connect. Let's see what happens to them. Okay. It wants, yeah, Hyper-V. I
Using
love
the
this.
VHD.
It wants I'm not sure why it removed the ISO file to begin with. It wants the ISO file. That's Hyper-V for you. Love it. No, not save. I don't want save. I want to reset this. Yeah, let's turn off and then turn back on. Yep, let's turn it back on and then it should start booting from ISO file. Yeah, here we go. Linux Lite is coming on. Okay, so while Linux Lite is coming on, what do you think will happen when we log in? Do you think we'll be able to access our secret folder?
Yes.
Why do you think so? Now we've encrypted it, remember, with
Because I
EFS.
think I have read somewhere that EFS also is heavily reliant on NTFS.
Well, even though it may look as if it's reliant on NTFS, it actually function outside of the file system. So
Okay.
actually, when we start this up, you won't be able to access that folder, no matter where you take it. You need the key to be able to find out what is in that. Otherwise, you won't be able to access it, and we're going to see that now. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing like this demonstration, so we can
Yeah, I
see it
think
for
pretty good.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can see it for ourselves. So you see that when this one comes up, so it won't be long, and we should have our Linux system up and running, and then we'll see that we won't be able to access it. We'll go there, we'll open it. Well, now we'll be able to access all the other folders and files that are on that system. So let's bring up this one again. So here we go. Here's our 68 GB volume.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, we have Joseph. Joseph, you've missed a lot, man. You've missed a whole lot.
Uh, I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
Yeah, because we've discussed like something, I mean, some really important. Zoe can tell you a little bit about some of the things we've discussed.
It's in the desktop.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Desktop. So let's
Yeah,
go on the desktop.
wonderful update was awaiting my system,
Ah,
and
yeah.
I guess I missed the warning that it's going to restart.
Ah, I understand. Windows. So,
Yeah, I'm on a Mac now, so that's what the problem was.
okay, nice one.
The
So what I'll do is
update.
let me actually just paste the ID and the password for you again. Um, let's go back to this one. And then if you look in the chat window, you see the ID and the password for the server that we're using today.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So look at this. We have
Yeah.
secret. Let's double click on it. We have a secret text. Whoa, amazing. Let's open it. Woof. Can you see? It's like,
Yes.
no, you can't access it. It's denied. Now, that is better
Okay.
protection than NTFS, right?
Yes.
Because now we can see it, but we cannot access the information except we have the key to decrypt it. So here's the point. Now, for us to configure EFS took us how many seconds? 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But what exactly happened? What happened when we went through all the process that we went through? What exactly happened? That's what we're going to discuss next. So can you explain to me, Zoe, what happened when I went and say right click and I went encrypt this folder, encrypt all the content of this folder, done. What exactly happened? So can you explain to me? So we have our file or our folder here. So what happened to it?
It what you explained to me earlier, I think is just generate a certificate with having a public and private key, and then use that certificate to encrypt the data.
Here's my first question to you, Zoe. What type? So we mentioned that there are two types of encryption. What type of encryption does EFS use? That's the first thing. What type of encryption does it use? Does it
I
use symmetric or asymmetric? What does it use?
uh, I mean the way it was doing so fast, I think it would be symmetric.
Uh, asymmetric. What about you, Joe? What do you think? EFS. You can unmute yourself. There's a way to unmute yourself. I muted it because of the recording we're doing. So you can unmute, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know I was still muted. um, what encryption is
EFS use. Does it use a symmetric or asymmetric encryption?
symmetric.
Symmetric. What's the difference between symmetric and asymmetric?
Uh, asymmetric, you need two keys,
Yep.
and symmetric, you just need one.
Yeah, good one. Nice one. So you think it's symmetric? Actually, your answer is right. Both of you, Zoe and Joe, your answer is right, but it's half right. Because actually, EFS uses both symmetric and asymmetric encryption. It uses both. So here is how it works. So we have a folder here that we want to encrypt. When EFS is encrypting it, EFS actually uses an asymmetric encryption key. So let's put this and say um, asymmetric key. Let's just put it AK. So,
So you
sorry,
are saying that uses both, right?
yeah, sorry, not asymmetric. That's a mistake. I meant to say symmetric key. So it uses both. So we'll see how it uses both. Let me delete this. So it actually just uses a symmetric key. So let's put SK. So it uses symmetric key and uses this symmetric key to lock this folder. It's like now you're locked with this symmetric key. If I want to decrypt you, I will need to use this same key to decrypt you. But then what it now does is this. It now makes a copy of this key, a copy of this key, and gives it to the user that needs to have access to this folder. So let's say the user that needs to have access to this folder is Zoe. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection just playing off. Yeah, sorry, so I can see you, David. Yeah, sorry, it's my internet connection. My internet connection
Okay.
is just playing off, yeah, today. So it just went off. And okay, yeah. So let's continue what we're discussing. So we said it's
So
gonna
it
use
makes a copy of the symmetric key.
symmetric key. So now let's say the person that needs to access this folder is Zoe. Zoe is the guy that needs to access this folder. So it makes a copy of this symmetric key that it has used to lock this folder. I'll mute to avoid the echo, but you can unmute yourself. So I'll take a copy of this symmetric key and I'll transfer it to Zoe. Yep. But what I'll now do is I'll now use Zoe. Now Zoe has a key pair, right? Zoe has a public key and Zoe has a private key, right?
Yeah.
So I'll now go Zoe's um, private key and Zoe's public key. So we have
Yeah.
those two. So let's go back a bit. So it doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Public key. Okay. So Zoe has these two, a private key and a public key. So what I now do is Zoe's public key is public knowledge. It's in the Active Directory, right? It's stored in Active Directory. I
Yeah.
now use Zoe's public key and I use it to lock this symmetric key. So now the only way for Zoe to know what the symmetric key is, how?
Is to use
Your
the private
private
key to
key
decrypt it.
to decrypt it. Then when you use your private key to decrypt it, now you have the symmetric key that you can use to access the folder.
Yep.
Is that clear at all? Is that clear, Zoe?
Yes, it is kind of clear, but let's say if you want to open the same secret folder in Linux, can you do this concept over there?
No.
You
So
can only do this in Windows.
except the only way you can do that is you can transfer. So it's not something that I've tried that I've actually like practiced, but I think you can transfer your certificate, which has your keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, there must be a way. There must be a way that you can transfer your certificate and that has your keys and then transfer them. But then here's the thing, is that the symmetric key is actually stored on the computer. You get the point? So this
Yeah.
symmetric key is stored on the computer. So it's not stored in your certificate, it's stored on the computer.
Can you show me where that key is?
No, absolutely, absolutely, I have no idea. Does Joe, do you have any idea where the key is? Where the symmetric key is stored?
Stored. Um, um, isn't it encrypted?
What?
The key.
Yeah.
Isn't it on the hold on, is it by no it's not digital certificate.
No, it's not. Um,
No. Uh,
so actually, let's just look up on Google. Let's bring up Google. Let's go. Uh, so the key is called FEK. So that's what it's called. So that's the technical term for it.
I think I saw in one of the videos where he demonstrated that, but he demonstrated only on the Windows that he attached the certificate to that certain user, and then user was able to access that data.
Ah, that's
So I
something
think there should
different.
be some way in Linux as well. If you attach a certificate to that particular username in Linux, you should be able to do that.
That's something different. File encryption key. So that's what it's called. File encryption key. Um, so let's see. Where is it stored? Backing up the encryption file system certificate. So I go. So this one will probably tell us where it is stored. Mm-mm. Ah, okay. In the main pane, click the certificate that lists encryption file system under intended purpose. Click the action menu and point to all tasks. Okay, yeah, here we go. So I think this is where the key is stored. So it's stored on your computer under this list, encryption file system,
Okay.
under certificate, under encryption file system.
Okay.
So that's where it's stored. So, but I hope that the point that we made is clear. That
Yes.
it uses both of them. So it uses a symmetric key to lock the file, but then what it does is it now uses your public key to lock that symmetric key. And then whenever you want to access this file, you simply use your private key to unlock that symmetric key and then use that symmetric key to decrypt the file.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that way it's fast. It's faster because now you're using a symmetric key rather than using asymmetric. So let's go back to this one. So there's the other thing that I want to mention. So if I go um let's log in. So here's the question that I want to ask is that now we understand this one now. So what happens if Zoe is like, okay, I also want Joe to have access to this folder or to have access to this file or to the files in this folder. What Zoe can do is she can go under this file. If it's a file, you can do it for a folder if it's a file, and say, sorry, file, I want Joe to have access to you also. So the moment you do that, you know what it's going to do? It's going to make another copy of the symmetric key and give it to Joe. And then use Joe's public key again. You get the point? To lock the symmetric key. And then whenever Joe wants to access this, Joe will use his private key, right? To decrypt this, get the symmetric key, then go use that same symmetric key to access the file. You get the point?
Yep.
Yeah. So the way to do that is if I go under this one and if I go to my desktop again, there we go, there's our secret folder again. Now, if I go under the folder and I go properties and I go to advanced, now I can't click on details, right? Because this is a folder, but I can only do that on the file level. So I can go under secret and go properties and go under advanced. Now, if I go under details, here is where I can add any user that I want EFS to give a copy of the symmetric key to. So let's say I want to add April. So I can go find user and look for user April. Yeah, so you know the reason why? Now it's complaining. It said no appropriate certificate corresponds to the user. What does it need a certificate for?
Certificate the same thing, having the public key and private key.
Yeah, but what does it need it for? It's like I can't add this user except I have this user certificate.
Because those users don't have the certificate attached to them.
Ah, no, that's not the reason. What about you, Joe? What do you think? Why is he complaining and saying I need the user certificate?
um, Maybe they don't have a private and public key.
Yeah, but what's the significance of that?
Ah, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, but what? Yeah, you're right. But what's the significance of that? Because
I mean,
again,
that's what is required to unencrypt that file.
To
to
encrypt the symmetric key.
exactly. So it's like before I can have this user, I have to give him a key. But I can't just give him this key. I have to encrypt it with his public key. And where is the public key located? You'll be in the certificate, right? Or in active directory. So it's like, hey, I need this public key to be able to encrypt it. So if I can't find any, sorry, I won't be able to hide this user. You get the point? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why it's
I will
completely
have to revise it tomorrow. Otherwise, by the time I'll wake up tomorrow, I'll forget everything.
no, but the good thing is that I mean you've been introduced to it now, right?
Yeah.
So I mean once you're reading it, you'll understand it easily.
So the idea is you have to generate the public-private key certificate first for that user.
So we remember what we said in the beginning. Remember this. You
Yes,
remember?
on your PKI. So you will generate a certificate for this user, right? First.
Yeah. So it says EFS depends a lot on your PKI, on your public key infrastructure, because that is what
Okay.
it uses to lock the symmetric key that it's using for the file.
Okay.
So now I hope we understand some basics. So again, just to review what we've discussed so far, to help Joe a little bit also. So we said we must not only learn how to configure our file systems with resiliency and good features. The other thing that we must learn how to do is to secure them. And then we did a short demonstration. Um, we did a short demonstration where we did a short demonstration where we um, used NTFS permission to lock a folder on Windows, moved that folder or moved the whole disk to a Linux system, and we were able to bypass NTFS permission and access that folder. So in other words, NTFS permission depends on Windows. If it's not Windows, you know, NTFS permission is basically gone. So we now used EFS to encrypt that same folder and now transferred it over to Linux again, but now we can't open it because now it's encrypted. So we're saying that this is more security than just your normal um, NTFS permission.
One quick question, this EFS thing, when you encrypted it to EFS, it's still, this file is still on the NTFS file system, right?
Yeah, it is. Definitely.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
Because EFS stands for what? Encrypted file system.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But what it
So,
actually does is, again, remember the basic concept of encryption. Plain text, it applies an algorithm to the file itself. So this does just applying something from a file system that's depending on the operating system. It actually takes that file and applies an algorithm to it, and it's like if you don't have this key, you can't decipher it.
okay.
So, which is like the basics of every encryption. So, and then that's what we talked about next. We talked about the basics of encryption and cryptography, and we said simply put, encryption and cryptography is you take a plain text, you apply an algorithm or a calculation to it, you get a ciphertext. And you take
Yep.
that ciphertext, you apply an algorithm or calculation to it, and you get your plain text again. And then we went
Yep.
and said there are two types. So there's symmetric and then there's asymmetric encryption. So symmetric encryption, you use the same key that you use to encrypt the file or the folder, is the same key that you use to decrypt it. And then
Yep.
we said asymmetric, you have a key pair, public private key pair. If you
Yep.
encrypt something with your public key, you decrypt with your private key. If you encrypt something with your private key, you decrypt with the public key. And we
Yep.
say, yeah, sorry, you wanted to say something, so
No, no, no.
yeah.
I'm just listening.
And then we mentioned something when we described this. We said that ties into your certification authority or your certificate authority, where you have a CA in your environment that issues certificate. And basically, what it's doing is it's generating public-private key pairs for users in your environment. So it generates a public key for Zoe, it generates a private key for Zoe. It takes Zoe's public and private key and puts it in Zoe's certificate and hands it over to Zoe. It takes Zoe's public key and puts Zoe's public key in Zoe's record in Active Directory. Joe wants to send something to Zoe. He goes to Active Directory and says, Active Directory, can I have Zoe's public key? Gives it to Joe. Joe takes this public key, um, uses it to encrypt the file he wants to send to Zoe and send it over. Zoe receives it and Zoe is like, yeah, I have my private key here in my certificate. I can use it to decrypt this information and I have access to it, right? And then we explain that EFS uses both symmetric and asymmetric. It uses symmetric to lock the file on the folder, but it now hands over the keys to the users that need access. But then what it now does is that if the user, it now locks that key with the user's public key, so that if you want to access it, now you have to um, decrypt it with your private key.
One question, you did the right click thing
Yeah.
and then added that particular user. Let's say you email it to me and
hmm
you didn't add it into that user folder. Is it still going to work?
As in email this file to you.
Yeah.
If I take this file, let's do something. I go copy and go File Explorer, C drive, and go paste. It's still encrypted. The only place that I can access this file is on this computer.
Okay.
You get the point?
Yeah,
Because
I get it in a way, but let's say if I have my certificate with me, which is correct certificate,
hmm
and you send this file to me in email,
yeah,
and I downloaded it on my folder, can I still access it if I got the right certificate?
but where will I'm not sure, I've not tested that before, but the question I will ask is because the symmetric key, again, remember it's stored on this machine, which is why I doubt that it's going to work on Windows, except you
Okay.
do what Microsoft suggests to do, which is you export the key, the EFS key. So actually, let's
Yeah.
look at that. Let's go to MMC. Let's see where Microsoft is. Except so you don't have to. It's not enough for you to have your own certificate that has your public private key. You have to
Yeah.
have the symmetric key also.
Okay.
So Microsoft, I think we read where Microsoft says you can export it. So let's go. Let's use user account, but let's add computer account too, because I'm not sure which one it will be under. Even
Yeah,
actually,
that's what my idea is. Like, let's say you email me the symmetric key. I have got my public key and private key
mm-hmm,
certificate, and then this file. I got three things, right?
mm-hmm,
You send me two things. You send me the symmetric key and this file in email.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And then I
Ah,
think
there
I
we
should
go.
be.
There we go. Look at this service account, EFS. So let's go finish. Let's see what that does. So service account EFS on local computer.
Now
I
I got
think
a
there are
quick
already
question.
some templates.
Oh, so George, you were saying something.
David.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is what I'm think. I was about to ask.
yeah,
Now I know the whole point of that one of the biggest weakness of symmetrically is to transfer from one user to the next,
yeah,
and it being still, you know, encrypted. Since you, let's say if somebody was able to snatch that in the middle,
yeah,
can use that to decrypt whatever, since it's a plain key. It's not
yeah.
like so Zoe was saying something about emailing. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea to email the key
But here's
since
the
it.
thing is that even if it emails the key to, well, if you take the key without
Ah,
EFS applying your public key to encrypt that key, then that's a problem. But the other thing is, remember that EFS left by itself, it will not send the symmetric key without it being encrypted with your private key. So again, remember the
um,
whole concept that EFS takes that symmetric key and what does it do with it? It encrypts it, right?
yeah.
With your public key. So the only person that can read this is you. You get the point?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can read it once it sends once it's encrypted
Yeah.
with the asymmetric, the public key.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
if you were to send to me while it's still encrypted in just the symmetric part,
Yeah.
that would be the
That would be
problem.
that would be a risk. Because if you get that, so basically anybody that has the key, they don't need to
Yeah.
decrypt anything with their private key. You get the point?
Okay.
Yeah. It said the left plane, double click personal, click certificate, um, click the certificate that lists encrypting file system under intended purposes. Oh, okay, it's talking about certificates that list, okay, under intended purposes. So I think this one, Zoe, I think this one is something that we still need to do some research on where does it store the certificate? You get the point.
Yeah, I think I
So
saw in the video it's not. I think it's quite deep down. You have to search for it where it stores.
because
I
this
think
one
it's
contains,
and I think it's under Active Directory user objects, but I'm still not sure.
yeah. Or the other thing that we can do, but we probably won't do it now because of time, is we can try exporting that certificate to a Linux machine, like the same thing that we did, and then
I
see.
saw something. I'm a bit confused because I saw something in the CBT Nuggets video. He was showing that on a third-party user or something,
mm,
he just exported a certificate, attached a certificate to that user, and then he was able to read that file.
I think what he probably did, what he probably did was maybe there's this concept that we've not talked about called the directory, sorry, the DRA, the recovery agent.
Yeah.
So if I go here and I go properties again, and I go advanced and I go to details, if well, I think I already have one open. That's why. So let's try to bring that up. Let's close this, close this, close this, close this. Now, so if I go to the file and go under properties, advanced and details, so you find there it says recovery certificate for this file as defined by recovery policy. I think the thing he's talking about is this guy here. I think that was what he did. Because what happens is, we said you can add, if you can add as many users as you want, and once you add the users, EFS will give them the symmetric key encrypted with their public key, right?
Yep.
And they can decrypt it with their private key to have access to the files. But then there's this user, which is like the recovery agent for the old domain. So this is in case all these users, something were to happen and they don't have access to that file. So this
Yeah, I
guy
think that's
here,
one. It is like it's like a basically last line of control, like for safety, for
yeah,
safety reasons.
and this guy will always have a copy of the symmetric key, always.
Okay.
So, and this guy comes from the domain group policy. So if I go under the domain group, if I go under group policy in the domain, and I go under group policy management, and I go group policy management, yeah, okay, here we go. And then if I go under, let's just edit this one, just so that we can see. So the directory, the default recovery agent, I think it's under group policies, Windows settings, I think. Windows settings, security settings, and then let's expand this. And then under public key policies and encrypting file system. So this is the default guy. So I can right click and say data recovery agent. So this will be the data
Okay.
recovery agent for the whole domain. So if I
Okay.
want, I can say, well, let's delete this guy because that's self-issued certificate. And I can go create data recovery agent. So now we have, so by default, it's going to be the domain admin.
Okay.
That will be the data recovery agent. So it will have a copy of all the keys by default.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one we still need to test it to see how do you recover the file on another operating system that's not Windows.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now at least we've reached a good point with EFS, right?
Yep.
Um. So the next I want to discuss is, but EFS is like it encrypts your folders and your files. But you saw when we moved the drive to a Linux system, we can still access all the system files, you know, we can still access all the boot files and all the other files except the ones that we've encrypted.
Yep.
So what happens in a situation when we now say, okay, we don't want if this machine were to be lost, this hard drive were to be removed or stolen, we don't want anybody to be able to have access at all to any information on this drive. That is
Yep.
where BitLocker comes in.
Yep.
So that's where what we'll talk about next. BitLocker drive encryption.
Yep.
BDE. So what is BitLocker drive encryption?
A scheme.
Sorry, Joe, carry on.
Um, well, I mean, I think that's the whole disk encryption to where when you turn off the when you turn it on, it decrypts the drive so you can boot and everything, and then when you turn it off, it's encrypted. So if you move it to another computer, it's the whole drive is encrypted.
Okay. Yeah, all this encryption, good one. What about you, Joe? What do you think?
Yeah, it
BitLocker.
encrypts the entire hard drive. This is one of the solution to encrypt the entire hard drive.
Okay. So says encrypts the entire hard drive. So does BitLocker do anything apart from encrypting the entire hard drive?
Uh,
Or is that all that BitLocker does? Just encrypt the drive? Does it do anything else? What do you think, Joe?
Um, I'm not sure. That's pretty much as much as I see as I know. It seems like they they try to advertise it as more of an encryption than anything. So I don't know what else it does.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
What about you, Zoe? What do you think? What does it do? What else does BitLocker do anything else?
well, I think this is the only thing I still know about BitLocker.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, you're both right in this answer to say BitLocker is a drive encryption technology. It's not a file encryption technology. It's not a folder encryption technology. You're right to say it encrypts the entire hard drive. Yep.
Yep.
And we've described what encryption is. Encryption is you take a plain text, apply an algorithm to it, you get a ciphertext. So that's what it does, but not on the file level, on the drive level. So in other words, um, when we got to Linux the other time, we were able to see the drive, right? Only that
Yeah.
we could not access some folders that we've encrypted. But in this case, we will not even be able to access anything on the drive. But here's the thing. Once we can provide the key that is used to encrypt the drive, we'll be able to access everything on the drive.
Yes.
So it doesn't provide file level encryption. So Microsoft actually recommending using BitLocker alongside with EFS. So because there's something in security called defense in depth. So defense in depth means if an attacker is able to break past a protection, there's another wall that is waiting for them. you know
Yes.
so you can use that kind of thing for defense in depth basically. So you have BitLocker drive encryption to encrypt the whole drive. So
Do you know about the hack for this, the BitLocker? Like somebody hacked it.
yeah, it's possible. It is actually, we're going to talk about that because there's a
Okay.
way to get around it. But it's
Yeah.
it's not like for babies. You have to be like a real security guy that knows what he's talking about. Many
Yeah.
administrators don't know how to do it. I know about what they say is the weakness, but I don't know how to do it. I've not done it before. So you have to be somebody who really knows your security, your white hat hacking very, very well to,
Yeah.
to be able to do it. So it's not like simple. Okay, so to what we're discussing. So we say it encrypts the entire drive, right? But it does more than encrypt the entire drive. So BitLocker, let me put it this way. It's a disk or drive encryption technology. And the other thing I'll say is it does more than bit on drive encryption. It actually has a lot of features. One of the features that it has is the one that we just mentioned now, drive encryption. But one other feature that it has is something called system integrity. Let's put the system integrity, maybe checking. or verification. Does anybody know what that means? System integrity checking or system integrity verification. So that's one other thing that BitLocker does.
Um, you can check to make sure that since the last time the information hasn't been changed. I'm guessing it's through some kind of a hash or something. I'm not sure.
You're right. Actually, you brought up I mean, that's a really nice point. I really like that because we're going to discuss that. You mentioned something about the hash. So that is right. It uses a hash to do this. But then, okay, you're right in terms of that. But okay, let me just speed that out. So one thing that can happen with attackers, one thing that can happen is they can try to bypass whatever security you're using by booting your hard drive um, by booting your hard drive with another boot disk, right?
Me, David, both in London.
Hello, sorry guys, my system again,
Ah, okay, no problem.
my internet. Yeah. Okay. So we said okay, system integrity checking. One thing to understand BitLocker is to know that it works very well with something called a TPM. What is a TPM?
Is that the one that has to do with the BIOS?
Yes, exactly. Um, so it's called a trusted platform module. So Zoe, have you been introduced to TPM before?
No.
Joe, what's your understanding of TPM?
I believe that's like part of the new technology that comes with some of the computers, to where it checks to see if there's any kind of it prevents modification to the BIOS, or it can check and see if the BIOS was ever changed or something that had happened within the boot process. I haven't got the full details on how it actually works, but I know that's similar to what.
Yeah, you're right. You're right actually. So let's go back to this one. Let's bring up another paint system. So here we go. So we have a computer here. So on this computer there is a chip on this computer. This chip is embedded inside this computer's motherboard. This chip is called a TPM, Trusted Platform Module. It's a chip that does cryptography, or they call it not to throw out too many times. They call it crypto processor. So basically, it generates keys and all that kind of stuff. But it's a chip. It's not software. It's a hardware chip that is on your motherboard. So BitLocker actually works well, or it's more secure when you use it with the TPM. Because what happens is that again, what type of encryption does BitLocker use? So we said EFS uses symmetric and asymmetric. So what about BitLocker? What does it use?
I think it's asymmetric.
Asymmetric. What do you think, Joe? What do you think? What does BitLocker use? Asymmetric or symmetric? And Joe, you still there? You need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
So BitLocker, what type of encryption does it use? Symmetric or asymmetric?
Um, well, I'm not sure, but from what I can tell so far, it looks like it's symmetric. Just, I mean, I don't remember. I don't see anything to do with public or private keys.
Mm. Yeah. So Joe is right. So it's not asymmetric, it's symmetric. I know that we were thinking that it will probably be a lot complicated, but it is symmetric, not asymmetric.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's what happens. See this
This TPM thing that you're talking about, is it something like has to do with the A6 processor or something like that to make it faster?
let's go TPM. So it's just a chip. So one of the major things behind this is the technology. Uh, so let's go TPM, Trusted Platform Module. So it's just a chip that's on your motherboard. So that's what it looks like. So you can see this one here is a TPM 1.2. So that's actually one of the things that we talk about. That BitLocker has certain requirements. It the tip if you're going to use BitLocker with TPM, the minimum TPM that it works with is TPM 1.2 or higher. It cannot be below TPM 1.2. So that's it on your motherboard. So it's just a chip on your motherboard. So it's more secure, and this is the reason why it's more secure. So let's see it together. You
Is it
understand it now?
commonly available, or do I have to check with my motherboard's specs? Like, is it?
Usually, almost all newer machines, so it's kind of like the UEFI thing. Almost all newer machines have TPM. Although you still have to
Okay.
check, but not all of them have. But actually, almost all of them will have because it's like really popular nowadays and all that stuff. But to this one, so asymmetric, what you need is a key, right? You need a key to encrypt and the same key you use to decrypt, right?
Yep.
Now, without the TPM, where will this key be stored? Where do you think this key will be stored? So when BitLocker goes and BitLocker takes your drive, so let's have your drive here. So here's your hard drive. So BitLocker is like I have to perform my super calculation on this drive. So BitLocker takes a key, Control Z. So BitLocker takes a key. Sorry, just need to get this one right. Okay, BitLocker takes a key and applies this key to your drive, right? Again, the basics of encryption. You take a key, you apply it to ciphertext, and what happens? Sorry, so you apply it to plain text and it becomes ciphertext, right?
Yeah.
So BitLocker takes this key, applies it to your drive. Now the information is not readable, right? Now
Yep.
for you to be able to read the information on this drive, you need the same key, right? So
Yep.
where will this key be stored? It will be stored with you, the user, right? So now you want to access anything on this drive, you have to take this key and enter it, and then BitLocker will give you access, right?
Yep.
But now what BitLocker now does, it takes advantage of this thing called a TPM and stores this key inside this chip.
So it burns it inside that TPM.
Exactly. So now, if you can steal this hard drive away from this computer and take it to any machine that you want, the only way you can access what is on this is if you can steal this TPM also. Because the key, where's the key stored again? It's on
It's
this
in
TPM.
the motherboard. Yeah.
Yeah. So except you can steal this one, you can't get access to the information that's on this drive. So,
Okay.
so is that clear? Why they said with TPM is much more secure that so you can enable BitLocker with TPM or without TPM. But if you enable it with TPM, it's much more secure.
Okay.
Joe wanted to say something.
Oh, no, 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 no. Now, okay. Uh, the question I had was,
Yeah.
if you were to, let's say, in case something happened to your motherboard,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
that key is stored within that the TPM, right, which
Yep.
is motherboard.
Yep.
Now, how if I get another computer,
Yep.
the same type of computer with the same type of motherboard.
Yep.
Let's say I buy a new motherboard to replace it. Am
Yep.
I able to continue using the same information, or is there, let's say, a particular some kind of technology or key or something that's in there that would prevent it from working?
You have to do a recovery. Basically, if something were to happen to this motherboard and this one were to be lost, you have to do something called a recovery. and their BitLocker provides different options for recovery. One of the
Okay.
options that it provides for recovery is it's something where it's like um, we'll see that today. It's Active Directory integrated, where BitLocker would take a recovery key for this machine and store it inside this machine's account in Active Directory. So you can use that key, that recovery key that BitLocker stores inside that machine's Active Directory account to recover the drive. You get the point?
Okay, I got it. I
Yeah.
got it.
So it's not as if that's like done. So it has recovery options where you can recover it if something were to happen to this TPM.
So if you didn't have that the Active Directory integrity in there and you didn't cover, pretty much you're screwed.
There's another option where you can say, okay, I want you to store it in this file location. So we'll see that also. So you can say for recovery option, because when you're configuring BitLocker, it will ask you, I want you to configure how I can be recovered. So you can say option one, do you want me to store a recovery key in a file location somewhere? So you can store the recovery file the recovery key in a file location. Or you can say this, do you want me to store the recovery key in Active Directory? So that's another option you can choose. But we'll discuss that when we get to BitLocker recovery option.
When you save the key into the Active Directory, then when the whole hard drive is encrypted, how do you boot into the system?
No, it's not saving the key in Active Directory. It's saving the recovery key. In case
Okay.
something were to happen to this TPM, like what Joe said, let's say this old motherboard, there's water, rain entered the building, you know, the motherboard is dead.
Yep.
But it has a recovery key. So we get to that when we get to Active Directory. I'm sorry, BitLocker recovery option. It has not the same key here. It is like a different kind of called a recovery key that you can use to recover the drive.
Okay.
So it stores that in Active Directory.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I
So
got a quick question, David.
yeah, sorry, please, sorry.
Do you know of another drive encryption software called Safeguard Sophos?
I work for Sophos.
Oh, you work for Sophos? I'm sorry, man, but I hate Sophos.
I
Uh,
know.
that's what we use on at the hospital here. All our computers and laptops are encrypted with Sophos, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I tell you something about that product. Tell you something about that product is being retired now
Oh yeah,
because security wise it's a good product, but performance wise it's a bad product.
very bad in
Yeah.
performance.
So
Very
yeah,
bad.
very bad. So it's even internally because we use the product internally. Even internally, we know it's bad in terms of performance.
Yeah.
So now, if you notice that, I'm not sure if you've noticed that Sophos doesn't market Safeguard anymore like that. So what
No,
they
it
do,
doesn't.
yeah.
But I
So
didn't want to deteriorate too much into the project. I just had a quick question
yeah,
in regards to that and in BitLocker. I
yeah,
noticed that when the drive is locked,
yeah,
there's times when it's locked and we have to do a recovery,
yeah,
and we go through these steps where it gives us a key,
yeah,
and then we go to this web application, in which case I think it's connected to the server or something, and then we enter the key and it gives us a recovery key.
yeah.
Is that the same type of process to where if we use the Active Directory integrity, it creates that key? Is that the same type of technology?
Yeah, something similar, but not exactly the same one.
But something similar to
Something
that.
similar to that. Yeah,
Not a true key, but it's just a recovery to the key.
yeah, exactly. It's just a exactly. You got that. So it's just a recovery.
Okay, I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. So yeah, you're right in that. So that's the whole point why it's more secure when you have the TPM because now the for you to be able to if you steal the hard drive, the key that you can use to access this hard drive it's on the motherboard. So you better steal the motherboard also.
Just get the whole computer.
Yeah. But then here's the thing, is that if you steal the motherboard, what happens? Because now the key is on this, what can happen is the drive is in this machine, right? The TPM is on this motherboard. So what happens if Zoe, let's say Zoe is the hacker. So Zoe is like, whoa, now I have the whole computer. The TPM is on the motherboard, is here, the hard drive is in here. I will boot this machine with this my special Linux boot disk and try to hack to get access to this key on the TPM to use it to gain access to this drive. That's possible. That is why one of the things that BitLocker does is what we mentioned, that it does system integrity validation. In other words, it validates your Windows startup process. So you're right, Joe, when you said it checks for your BIOS. So basically, in your BIOS, Joe, in your BIOS, you can set something called the boot order, right?
Yep.
So you can say boot from the hard drive first. If there's nothing on the hard drive, boot on the network, right? If there's nothing on the network, boot from the CD, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you as an attacker, you gain access to this machine, including, the motherboard and everything. You now go and say, whoa, now I can try to hack into this TPM. I'll change the BIOS and say, boot from the CD first so that I can boot with this my special Linux key. You know what will happen?
Yeah.
BitLocker will not let you boot Windows. You'll basically be like, no, something has changed. I'm not going to boot. So that is system integrity validation. If you set up your startup process, if anything changes, BitLocker assumes instantly something dodgy is going on. I'm not going to allow you to boot.
So how do you tell BitLocker that you are genuine? Is it like a
You have
one
to
of?
enter the recovery key
Okay.
from either Active Directory or from the file location that you saved it. So BitLocker is that no, something has changed. Someone is trying to do something dodgy. You're trying to bypass my protection. I'm not going to let you boot until you can give me the recovery key. Then I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So that's one of the other things that BitLocker does. So it not only encrypts the drive, it protects your Windows startup process.
So one quick question: how are you going to give the recovery key to it?
Yeah, you type it in, but it's going to be a really long one. Like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's
yeah,
gonna be huge.
yeah, like the first one, like the one that you said, it's like about 128 bit, sorry, 128 characters or something, right? Really, really long one.
Very long.
Yeah, so this one too will be a really long one.
I've been through it a lot of times. Let's just say it's too long.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Have
you
you
better know what's up because you have to start all over again.
exactly? So that's the thing. So BitLocker does that. So BitLocker will be like, yeah, you have to enter the recovery. So that's one of the things it does. It does the validation. So again, how does it do the validation? It's simple. Joe mentioned something called a hash. Here's my question. What is the difference between hashing and encryption? Zoe, you want to go first?
No, I just know about the MD hash and stuff, but I can't explain it.
Yeah. What about you, Joe? What's the difference between hashing and encryption?
Well, I think hashing is more of integrity
Good
to
one.
where once you can only get that value once,
Yep.
and any change you make, you never get the same hash again. So hashes is more for integrity, and encryption is more for confidentiality.
Yeah. Look, very, very good point, Joe. Look at this. Look at this.
I think hashing is also something on the label. Like you can do a hashtag on 64-bit, 128, 256 label wise.
Yeah, they are like different complex algorithms for hashing and all that stuff too. So look at this. I said, hello, this is Zoe, right? And I
Yep.
generated the MD5 hash. If I were
Yep.
to go and just change something and go Zoe Um, let's see. So, yeah. If I go and I remove the zero, I've changed something, right?
Yep.
But let me even put the zero. Let me just put a space.
Yep.
Look at this. This is a completely different set of characters.
Yes.
So what BitLocker does with TPM is this. So when you configure your BIOS, right? To say this is the startup process, this is the Windows boot up process, it will take a hash of that configuration. And where do you think it's going to save that hash?
Burn it to the TPM.
Exactly. Inside the trusted, inside the TPM.
So you mean to say that it's gonna keep all the information about the system and burn it into a hash and store it into TPM key, right?
Not the information about the system, the hash of the configuration.
Okay.
So it's like you've configured your, so it's going to be like, yeah, I'll take a hash of that and I'll save it in the TPM. So if you want to boot Windows, the first thing it does is go to check TPM and says, here is the hash of the current configuration. Is it the same as the hash that you have? If TPM says, no, it's not the same as the hash that I have, you'll be like, sorry, you're not booting. You get the
So I
point.
got a question.
Sorry?
I got a question.
Yeah. See.
Since it does the hash,
Yep.
that's similar. It's similar to like the password. Since it doesn't save a password, all it does is just create a hash for the password. So when you log in, it
Yep.
checks the hashes if it's the same, and you log in.
Yes.
Now, you know there's tools to where you can wipe the hash for the password. In which case, when you go back in, you're able to log in without the password.
Yep.
Now, is it possible to wipe the hash?
if
Or
you if you are an electronic engineer specialist that knows how to gain access to motherboard, so you get the point where they say Microsoft will tell you BitLocker is much more secure when you use it integrated with the TPM, because
okay,
otherwise all this one will be with the user.
okay, okay, I got it.
But when you integrate it into something that is a chip, that is a hardware, now you need specialist knowledge to get access into that chip.
Okay, makes more sense. When it's hardware, it requires different set of skills than just
Than just,
hacking.
yeah, exactly, than, because if this key, this encryption key, if it were to be with a user, it can be lost. But this one that is here is like there's nowhere you're going.
Okay, I
I
got
know this hash concept from the Bitcoin thing that you generate a hashtag and then it just, keep everything secure under a wallet or something.
Sincerely, I know nothing about Bitcoin. Sincerely, what do you think? Do you know much about Bitcoin, and Joe?
Well, I'm not really sure about the Bitcoin. I just heard some stuff, but that's it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. So is the, yeah, I've absolutely no idea about Bitcoin. I've just heard about it that there's something called Bitcoin.
I'm not really. I haven't been interested in it, so I haven't really even paid attention to it. So I don't know how it works or anything.
Zoe is a good businessman, so anything that has to do with like with stuff like that, really. But yes, you're probably right in terms of like, so hashing is usually like what Joe said, it's for integrity, while encryption is for confidentiality. So
Yeah, I mean, like what Joe was saying about this password thing and converting into hash, that's what basically Bitcoin does. It's make it so complex that you can't break it, but you have to. They people say that the hacker, if you want to be safe from the hacker, like it's so serious
yeah.
that you have to write it on a paper and bury it in under some kind of a sand or something and forget about it or put it in a bank locker.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say about Bitcoin hash.
Yep.
That it's so crucial
Yep.
that you just write the password and don't save it ever on electronically
Yep.
anywhere. Just
That's
just
why
bury it under your bank account or like bank locker.
Yep.
I like the cash idea. I don't need to encrypt my cash. So
I'm not sure. Maybe I think it's like what many people are saying. It's kind of like you know, like new technologies. It's kind of like a new thing. For somebody to even think that up, I think that's like a lot of intelligence. Although I don't know much about it, but I'm like,
It's very complex. You need like tons of like 8 or 10 graphic cards, GPU power to write that hash for you. Like it's very complex.
hmm yeah,
And people like making a lot of rigs, crazy rigs on eBay for making that hashtag for you.
Yeah. So men, like, people are intelligent and all that stuff. Like this whole thing about this one, like even this one that we're talking about the TPM and the hash key and everything. There's a way that you can get around it. One way you can get around it is something called a cold boot attack, where
Yeah.
what they can do is, let me Google that. If I go cold boot attack, so that can work against the TPM. Because what they can do is you add reboot the machine. So let's see.
Is it
Um,
something like the rootkit attack or something?
yeah, look at this. It says the attack has been demonstrated to be effective. No, it's not even a rootkit attack. So they said this attack has been demonstrated to be effective against full disk encryption schemes of various vendors and operating systems. That's talking about Bitlocker. Even where a trusted platform module secure crypto processor is used. So basically what they do is, that once you can verify to TPM that you're genuine, it's going to load the key, it's going to load it into the memory, right? So it loads the key and loads it into your RAM. So what they will do is you can add power off the machine, right? So once you add power off the
Yeah, yeah,
machine,
I've read about it. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
and then you just quickly, it also depends on time because the RAM doesn't clear off
I
immediately
think it's
like that.
30 to 40 seconds window you have for it.
Exactly. So you just immediately take out the RAM, plug into another computer, and try to take a dump of the RAM. So you
No, no,
have to
it's
be
not
really
like
quick.
that. You need to have a. Do you know these air compressor cans?
Yeah,
If you invert it
yeah,
and if you put a spray on the RAM,
yeah,
it's going to give you another 30 or 40-second
yeah,
window.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's only 10 or 15 seconds. You
yeah.
can't do that in 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. So that's what they
It
said
gives
here
you
also.
extra window. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
The spray.
So you can use that. Yeah. So basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take a dump of the memory. So he said the memory modules are removed from the original system and quickly placed in a compatible machine under the attacker's control, which is then booted to access the memory. So you just basically quickly add power it off, remove the memory, transfer it to another machine, try to take a dump of the memory, and then you
Yes.
find your keys are inside that.
Yeah.
But you agree with me that this is not something that just every dictionary can do. Or Joe, do you know how to do this? How to how to take over the memory and do a dump and do all that kind of stuff? No,
Um,
never
I'm
done
not,
it
I'm
before.
not gonna lie. Uh, I do have a bachelor in forensics, and they did teach us
Ah,
all these different things about digital forensics and how to get when things like this. So I do know
yeah.
a little bit, but I can't
Ah,
in the air. I don't want to be part of a criminal investigation.
good idea. Good idea. I tell you, but I'm really impressed with like all these guys that do all this kind of stuff. I work with them like every day in the office and all that stuff, and they're really impressive guys. They're always looking for ways to break into something.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Every time when somebody knows I do computers, they're always like, "Oh, can you break into my Facebook? My husband's Facebook? My." I'm like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. But I tell you, it's like, security is like one of the fun, also like one of the fun things in IT. If you're working with like, someone like me with like just a system admin, you know, that just knows about security. Then from when you're working with like security specialists, it can be so interesting and fun. Like the security guys and so forth and everything. I tell you, like some of the things that they do, you'll be impressed. You know, like I know like the guy that is in charge of like internal security, he does this thing where he does like phishing attacks. Simulating phishing attacks. So he does phishing attacks and sends like all these random emails to people in the company without telling you it's a phishing test. So you'll get people to click on links and enter their passwords and then contact you later and say, well, you work for a security company, but you just clicked on a link and I just got your password now. And it does that. And then the other thing they do is they take like a dump of Active Directory's hash and then crack all the passwords. and they do like all this impressive stuff, like, and you're like, wow, this is amazing and stuff like that. But yeah, back to BitLocker stuff. So I hope that is clear in terms of how BitLocker works in terms of
Yep.
like with the TPM module. So it works with the TPM module. So it's got the key, it's got the hash. It does system integrity validation of your boot process, of your startup process. It encrypts your drive using a symmetric key. So the symmetric algorithm that it uses is the popular AES. So it uses AES, and it can either be 128 bits or 256 bits. So that one you configure that, and depending on what you want. So yeah, that's for BitLocker. So what we'll do is let's
AES stands for what?
um advanced encryption standard.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like an algorithm that it's like a symmetric algorithm. So if you go, hey, yes, yeah, and there we go. Yeah, advanced encryption standard. So yeah, so it's a symmetric, yeah, it's a symmetric key algorithm. So that's what it uses. So, so yeah, and here's the thing is that even like have you ever seen? Let me show you this document. This is like an interesting document. So TPM, like if you work for like you Joe says you work in the health field. So health field encryption is really important to you guys because your information must not be lost. So all your data must be encrypted. Same with the U.S. Department of Defense. U.S. Department of Defense. Look at this document. The DoD USA. This is nice. Look at this document. Uh, the requirement to encrypt sensitive unclassified data at rest on mobile computing device. In
Yeah, I think there's a limit for it. You can't go beyond that, otherwise they will knock at your door.
Yeah, and then they say in anticipation. No, what I mean is that look at their requirement for their devices. So TPM is compulsory for their devices. In anticipation of emerging encryption product capabilities, this is in 2007, as well as requirement for device authentication, DoD components shall ensure all new computer assets, server, desktop, laptop, PDA, procured to support the DoD enterprise, include a TPM version 1.2 or higher, where such technology is available. Written justification must be provided if you can't, if there was a reason why you must buy an equipment that doesn't have a TPM. So just to
Right.
emphasize, like in terms of like even and the terms of security that this chip can provide, that even the U.S. Department of Defense are like, yeah, every one of our device that you buy has to have this on it, and that's what we're going to be using. Okay, so let's go to our window and let's do a bit of BitLocker configuration. So if I want to enable BitLocker on this one, what do I need to do? What are the steps? There's a four-step process for enabling BitLocker. What are the steps? Number
I think
one,
you need to.
four-step process for configuring BitLocker. Okay, so what's number one? Who wants to go first?
I think you have to enable that in the feature,
Enable what?
uh, the BitLocker in the server feature. I think.
BitLocker feature in Server Manager. Do you agree with that, Joe?
Yes, definitely. To
That's
install the feature.
actually that's step number two. So that's not step number one. What do you think step number one will be?
Install feature.
Yeah, because that's number two. That's enable BitLocker feature or install.
Okay.
So what about step number one? What do you think it will be?
I think file system.
We just talked about TPM.
Oh, enable TPM.
Yeah. So if you're going to be using TPM, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to enable TPM. And where do you enable TPM?
BIOS.
Yeah, exactly, in the BIOS. So that's the first thing you do if you're going to be. So you can use BitLocker without TPM, but it's advisable you use it with TPM. But if you're going to use it without TPM, you have to enable with TPM. You have to enable it in BIOS first. Then you install BitLocker. Then what's the next thing you do after that? What's number three? Joe, what do you think? What's number three?
Uh,
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, sorry.
So
Um,
what's number three? What do we do?
then number three.
Yeah. So there's a four-step process for configuring BitLocker. So we enable TPM in the BIOS. We install the BitLocker feature in Server Manager. What do we do next?
Um, do we need to install feature? Well, do we need to deploy it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. The next thing we need to do is we need to configure.
Group policy. Okay.
For BitLocker settings. Because BitLocker settings, you don't actually go to a wizard to set BitLocker settings. BitLocker settings come from group policy. And here's the
Now,
thing. Yeah, carry on.
that's only for the computers have the Windows 7 professionals. Ultimate, isn't it?
And so here's the thing. You can use a local group policy if you want, or you can use a domain group policy if you want. So it doesn't have to be a domain group policy. You can use a local GPO also.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's the thing, you're right in terms of like the software requirement. The software requirement is uh, Windows Vista or Windows 7, and that is Ultimate and Enterprise editions. And then all Win 2008 and above editions. So if you're using Windows Vista or Windows 7, that's to be Ultimate or Enterprise. If it's Windows 2008 and above, so all versions support BitLocker now. What about Windows XP? What do you think, Joe? Windows XP?
Mm, I'm not sure. I think might be 64-bit, but not sure.
No, doesn't support BitLocker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't support BitLocker. The only thing it supports is if you encrypt a drive with BitLocker, you can access that drive if you download something called BitLocker Reader or something like that. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So after you configure the group policy settings for BitLocker, then what's the next thing that you do? You enable BitLocker for that volume. So we'll just quickly run through this step and we'll call it a day. So let's just quickly run through this. I'll run through it as quickly as possible. So here's what we'll do. We have Active Directory here. So if we have TPM, we'll go to enable it, but we don't have TPM here. So what we'll first of all do is we'll install it. If we go um, add rows of features. So while we're adding rows of features, while we're installing it, we'll also be configuring. So it's a feature, it's not a row. There we go. BitLocker drive encryption. So let's add that. And the other thing that we'll probably need is because this is a domain controller, we want to add this option. Look at this option, feature administration. This option that says BitLocker drive encryption administration. Do you know why we need to enable this?
Mm,
Because of our recovery. Because whenever I want to do a recovery, if I go under computers and I go under, we have to view advanced features first. If I go under computers and I go under properties, I'll see, well, it's not yet here, maybe because I've not installed BitLocker yet. So view advanced features. Yeah, so after it's installed, I'll see a tab under properties called BitLocker recovery. So that's where the recovery key for that computer will be stored. You get it?
yeah.
So that's why we need this one, BitLocker. So if you click on this one, BitLocker recovery password viewer, look at this. Helps locate BitLocker drive encryption recovery password for Windows-based computers in Active Directory domain services. So that's the way we're going to be able. So if you have BitLocker set up in your environment and you notice that, hold on, I can't see the BitLocker recovery tab, just make sure that you have BitLocker recovery password viewer, that tool installed on your domain controller or on your computer that you're using house search from. So while we're doing that, let's go and enable BitLocker settings um, in a domain policy. So if you go um, edit a domain policy, and let's go, come on, domain policy, come on. Oh, okay, maybe it's already open. this one. Yeah, okay, here we go. We have a domain policy here. So yeah, let's close this. Okay, here we go. So the default domain policy. So I think it's on the administrative template, Windows component, BitLocker drive encryption. And I'll show you the main policies or the most popular policies. So under BitLocker drive encryption, you have this one called store BitLocker recovery information in Active Directory. Can you see that?
I think these are the basic templates that you get by default, right?
Yeah, but some of them are like popular. I just want to show you one through like the popular ones, not all of them. So store BitLocker recovery information in Active Directory. So if you enable this, you can store BitLocker recovery information in Active Directory, like we said. So you go enable, you say, you know, set BitLocker recovery information to store. So recovery password and key passages. Yeah, and then you can say store it in Active Directory. But this one only applies to Windows Server 2008 and Windows Vista. If you want to do it for Windows 8 and Windows 2012, you have to go into the drives or the volume and go into this option that says, where is this option? Um, um, choose how BitLocker protected operating system drives can be recovered. So this is for at least Server 2008 out to Windows 7. So this one. So then you have to say enable it, you know, and then here's where you have to go. Yeah, store recovery password only, store recovery password and key packages. You can say do not enable BitLocker on the information is in Active Directory. The other thing you can do is you probably want to configure the encryption. You want to configure, so how strong is the encryption? You can use this one for Windows 8 and Server 2012. You can use this one for older operating system. So if I double click on this, I can say enable this, and I can say I want you to use AES 128-bit symmetric key or AES 256-bit symmetric key. So that's another popular one. Another popular one is under fixed data drive. I can say deny write access to fixed drives not protected by BitLocker. In other words, if there's a drive on this computer, a data drive that is not BitLocker encrypted, don't allow a user to copy files to it. They can read it, but they can't copy any files to it except they've encrypted it. So that's another popular one. Yeah. So then after you enable the setting, then the next thing you have to do is you have to go into control panel, and under control panel you look for, after you won't find it here because it's not yet installed. You see a folder called BitLocker drive encryption. So then you have to look for that folder, and then you have to enable BitLocker for that volume that you want. I'm not sure if that's clear.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that clear at all, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's the first step process for BitLocker. Because of time, we may not be able to go through that in details, but at least I hope you understand more theory as to how EFS and how BitLocker works.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think next week we can do auditing. So we can do auditing today.
Thank you so much, David.
No problems, guys. Nice hanging out with you guys again. So we'll see you again next time.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Have fun, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll post the recording very soon. See you.